Good evening, Year 11s. Welcome to the Night Before News for Product Design. I'm Mr. Muketi and I'll be taking you through a few questions to assist you in preparation for your exam. Your paper is 2 hours long and it's 100 marks, so make sure you attempt all questions. Don't leave any blank. Okay, show all your workings in maths and then check at the end of your paper that you've answered every questions. In this session, you will need a pen and a paper. As I go through some of these questions, I will pause and allow you to attempt those questions by yourself. The first question is about polymers or plastics. Okay, most polymers are synthetic, meaning they are man-made and have been designed by chemical engineering. Polymers fall under two categories. You've got thermosetting plastics and thermoplastics. Thermoplastics are plastics that can be heated, molded, heated again and remolded multiple times, and because you can do so, they can easily be recycled, whereas thermosetting plastic would be heated once, molded, and once they set, they cannot be remolded again. Examples of the commonly used thermosetting plastic, as you can see on the right hand side, are acrylic, which is the one we use mostly in school. It comes in different colors. It is easy to mold, it's easy to cut, and easy to work with. The second one is LDPE, which is low density polythene, which is a flexible material or a flexible plastic that we see or is used mainly in carrier bags or water and drink bottles. And the next to it is what is called HDPE, which is high density polythene, which is slightly stronger than the low density polythene. Now, when manufacturers make water bottles or drink bottles, normally they will use LDPE for the bottom of that bottle, and then on the lid, which is slightly stronger, as you all are aware, they will use HDPE. Both these materials are easy to mold, they are flexible, but they are also water resistant. The next one is polypropylene. Okay, it's another example of a thermoplastic that can be reheated and molded multiple times, and we see this one being used a lot of the times on the seats that we sit on in school, but also on any food packaging, for example margarine and butter containers. Okay, and then the last one would be PVC, and PVC is mainly used on drain pipes that we find at home or on any general buildings basically. Okay, so this question here requires you to name a type of plastic that you think could have been used for making the margarine tub. Now, looking at the previous slide, we looked at a few different thermoplastics. So here I could answer by saying polypropylene or PP is the most suitable plastic to be used for making the margarine tub. Again, low density polythene is a suitable material, although it is not generally used for making margarine and food tubs. So polypropylene here would be the best material I would choose for this question. And then the second part B says, explain why this type of plastic is suitable for packaging. And here you need to give at least 2 points, 2 suitable points, given the reasons why this material is suitable. It's a 2-mark questions, so that's what you'll be giving. So for me, I could answer by saying it is easy to mold into that shape of a margarine tub. I know it's moisture resistant, so the contents inside will not leak out. But also I know it can be recycled because it's a thermoplastic, so it is good for the environment in that sense. And then the container can be used for something else when the margarine is finished on there. So again, when we comes to sustainability, the polypropylene is the suitable material for making this margarine tub and for also ticking the box for sustainability. So when you are ready, you can either repeat the last slide or I'll give you now the chance to attempt answering these questions without looking at the answers I've given you. When you are ready, pause this slide and attempt this question by yourself. In this next question, you are required to name one process that you can use to remove waste material in product design. We've gone through a lot. We've done loads since you started in year 7. So processes like laser cutting, punching, turning, milling or routing, drilling, cutting or sewing, sharing, filing, sanding, all of those are processes or examples of removing waste. Okay, so here you can choose either of those, and in this instance I've just chose laser cutting. Now the next part is, which is a 5-mark question, describe your chosen process. So here really you can list 5 points to explain the process of laser cutting, and in this instance this is what I've got. I have put here that laser cutter can be used to cut plastic, wood, paper and fabric. So I've stipulated here, or I've made it clear that I do know what materials can be used on the laser cutter. It is precise and accurate. You can repeat cutting the same design as many times as you want. Unlike if you was to be hand cutting, you can't precisely cut the same piece or same shape multiple times, but a laser cutter will be able to do so. It avoids human errors when cutting, and work can be shared with others easily. As designers, we work in teams, and sometimes you might require somebody else somewhere to edit the work you've done, so you can share your work around and somebody can edit it ready for laser cutting. Now the next step, I've just put a couple of points really to just explain how a laser cutting process works, and the first one being you draw your design on 2D design, save your work to the laser file, and then you can instruct the laser cutter to cut that work. If you want to go in much more details, then it is still fine, you can do so, as long as it's different points explaining how the laser cutter works. But also you can choose any other process, for example drilling, which again all of you would have done, and you just need to explain how the process works. So in this example I've put, it is a process of making holes or hole on wood, plastic, metal, card and other materials. So again I've stipulated the materials that you can use for drilling. The process can be completed using a twist drill bit, with a cordless drill, electric drill or a bench drill. So here I've now named the tools that are used for drilling. Okay, if you wanted to go further, then you can explain the whole process of drilling, checking the machine quality controls, health and safety procedures when you are drilling, sorry. So you can go a bit further explaining the process of drilling to show you understand it. When you are ready, you're welcome to then attempt this question on your own, so you can pause the video. In question 3, you're required to describe 3 ways that materials are strengthened or reinforced. In product design, we've worked with a range of materials from wood, plastic, card, paper, fabric. So here the question doesn't necessarily list what you should be talking about, so you can choose any material that you want to talk about, but it should be the material that you know about. Okay, it's a 3-mark question, so 3 points written in full sentences. The first one here is plywood is created in layers that are cross-linked to reinforce the material. So meaning on plywood, each and every one of those layers, the grains are facing a different direction, and what that does, it makes the plywood to become strong. Corrugated card is also made of layers of cardbox with a corrugated corrugated in the middle to make it stronger, so that cardbox doesn't flex easily. Paper can be laminated with clear plastic to make it slightly moisture proof. We've seen this in classrooms. We've got worksheets that are paper laminated, so that we can write on top of them, we can wipe it up, and then it doesn't get destroyed very easily. But also when we look at buildings, we know a lot of buildings, they use concrete, so concrete can be reinforced with metal frames in the middle to increase their strength. Or we know if it's fashion, on collars, some manufacturers would put a plastic collar or a polymer inside the collar, and what this does, it prevents the collars from bending and flexing too much, so they stay all rigid at all times and looking all sharp. But also with fabric, you can stiffen fabric through using French seams, hems, and on jeans, actually by the pockets, they would use rivets to join materials together and to make that sort of area stronger. When you are ready, you can pause the video and attempt these questions by yourself. Question 4. Explain why each factor below, which is bulk buying or ethical factors, would need to be considered by a manufacturer when sourcing materials or components. So if manufacturers are planning on building a product, they then decide, right, we need to go and source some materials. What sort of factors or what sort of things do they need to think about or consider before they go off and buy those products? So one here is about bulk buying, and the other one is about ethical factors. So we'll look at bulk buying first. My answer here would be buying multiple products or multiple material or more materials or loads of materials can give discounts and reduce costs, which means customers will buy them cheaper. So manufacturers can go to retailers to buy loads of different materials, and when they do so, they're giving discounts. If they're giving discounts, then they are very highly likely going to sell those products a little bit cheaper to the consumers. Buying the correct amount of materials will reduce waste. So if they buy what's needed to make those products, then they are less likely going to waste material. Because if they waste materials, that means they've got to find somewhere to cover their costs, and that will be when they sell the products. They will recover those costs from the consumers who buy from them. So when it comes to ethical factors, avoid consuming or consumption of unnecessary finite resources. So the manufacturers here need to make sure they don't use loads of finite resources. They need to try and make sure they're using renewable sources to manufacture products or to go and source those products or those materials. They need to be using alternative materials where possible. So if for making their product, they've got to use a certain type of material that is not eco-friendly, they might then decide, or they might have to think about using something that's a little bit more ethical and a biodegradable alternative material. So they'll have to then go and source that rather than using a material that might not be recyclable and that might harm the environment. But also, only buy materials that are ethically sourced where animals and people haven't been exploited. So you'll be looking to think, there's been loads of talk about most of our clothes being made in other countries where people are not being paid the correct amount, where workers are not being treated well. So as a manufacturer, you'll be looking to go and source your materials and components from places where you know everyone who works in those factories is treated well. When you are ready, you can pause the video and you attempt this question